Southbound 270, you've got slow pockets now from north of Olive down to about Manchester Road. South of there, just sluggish passing Highway 44. And still a short delay approaching the scene east and westbound on Highway 30 at New Sugar Creek. I'm Frank Ladd with traffic on the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by McKelvey Homes.
Hi, I'm Jim Brennan at McKelvey Homes. Have you always wished for a brand new home in an established neighborhood? Select one of our move-in ready custom homes throughout St. Louis, or we will build on your lot. Visit McKelveyHomes.com and move up to McKelvey.
News, traffic, and the latest from the world of sports. This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX. Smooth opinion.
Hi, guys. Welcome into Thursday. It is Rush Hour Sports. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. A little sports open line after this, but it's going to be a little short one tonight. So we got Thursday night football.
Yeah, not interesting game with the Giants and the Eagles, considering, that Eagles game against Denver this past week, and it felt like they got exposed when all of a sudden Denver started coming out at them. So we'll see what happens tonight. You'd think the Eagles win and win easily, but
I would think a bounce back against an inferior team, but you never know. You got the power.
Giants are bad.
You got the power of Scattaboo.
There you do. You do.
He's actually pretty good. He's a lot of fun to watch. All right, so we got a busy hour here. We're going to talk some baseball a little bit later. For a change, we're going to push the baseball back just a little bit. But for a teaser, we're going to be talking about Jordan Walker. There was video today of him working at Driveline, which made me very happy. Made me very happy. And we'll talk about why and all of that later on. We are also going to talk about the report. I believe was it La Vocera out of Puerto Rico that had the report that Yachty is talking to the Cardinals about joining the coaching staff.
Yes.
My guess would be bench coach, but that job's taken at the moment. But it doesn't mean it'll stay that way, because who knows if Daniel Descalso is getting offers or things along those lines. And it could be some other role that, we don't know exactly. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. But
I think one of two things will happen, and I'll say what those two things are later in the show.
And I'll throw in the tease. If he is on the staff, is that going to make you go buy tickets? Because I've had a million people say, if you hired one of those guys, Yachty or Albert, it would sell tickets. Yeah, well, maybe we'll find out. Now, I know he's not going to be the main guy, but he's still there, still in the dugout, still influencing things. I believe the answer is probably no. But that was the point all along. And then I got a few thoughts on the baseball playoffs, just quick things that we'll say for the very end if we have time, because we may not have time with all the other stuff. But we're starting off with Blues. It's opening night tonight. We talked about this yesterday, Matt, that this year is a completely different vibe at the beginning of the year than it was at the beginning of last year, because you had that really fun, amazing second half and the run to get into the playoffs that was really improbable. A lot of that had to do with Jim Montgomery coming in because he's one of the best coaches in the league. A lot of that had to do with development of players, guys on the younger side becoming something significant. Guys that were already here and good got better. And I think this roster's in the best position it's been in a really long time.
Really long time. I talked about this with Bernie yesterday on Sports Open Line, because it was a couple bold moves by Armstrong that really got this thing moving forward. When they went and got Holloway and Broberg, that was the first domino. And then all of a sudden Jim Montgomery becomes available, and they just go. They just do it. They just make the move right there. Didn't matter that Drew Bannister had been on the job for 15 minutes. They saw the opportunity to get better, and they went and made that. And then once that happened, some other things started happening. You look at the impact of a Montgomery on somebody like Jordan Kyrou and somebody like Robert Thomas. I think it was clear that those guys got closer to their high potential with that coach. So the process was able to be expedited pretty significantly because of a couple big moves that were made.
So I like the depth. I like the combinations even in the bottom six of the forwards. I like the versatility that they have there. There are more kids that we could see show up as the season goes along, which is another really good thing. And I think the biggest area that's changed in terms of like the long-term big picture is the defensive group. I thought the blue line was a real problem when we were coming into last year. It was for a lot of last year, but it's taken a big step forward, and it for a few reasons, right? I mean, first of all, I would have never thought that Cam Fowler, given the fact that he's 34 years old, would have been as big of an impact player as he was when he came into this team last year. And it certainly looks like he's going to carry that forward. He's a great combination with Colton Parayko on the top pairing. So that big change was, to me, unexpected because, he was just a veteran guy on a bad team. And then when he got here, all of a sudden, he was the good Cam Fowler again, and he just needed to be around more talent, apparently. But we also have seen Justin Falk kind of get back to being more of a factor. Philip Broberg being able to play with him gives them size and more offensive ability. These guys are all capable on the power play if you need them to be. And now you got the kid that I'm really interested in, Logan Mailloux, who they seem to be very high on. I mean, I think it was Doug Armstrong, or it was either Armstrong or Montgomery the other day talking about down the road, this guy could be, like a top pairing guy. He's got the shot. He's got a lot of ability. Just never really had the chance to settle in and be, a regular every night in the lineup NHL player.
Yeah, I like the defensive grouping. I really feel good about that top. You always want your top defensive pairing to be a duo that you feel like they can slow down, they can stop the top offensive players that you're up against. And I think the Fowler Parayko, and you mentioned how Parayko makes Fowler better. I think Fowler makes Parayko better. We've seen some of the best hockey from Parayko working alongside of Fowler. It wasn't a cheap cost to go get Mailloux, but they went and did it. Obviously, they think very highly of him, putting him along with Tyler Tucker. That's a pairing that obviously has some growth. And then you mentioned the offensive potential of that Broberg and Falk defensive pairing as well. It's just, I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. It really feels like all three defensive pairings kind of have their own unique personality and can do some different things, which is what you want on a roster. You want diversity of a roster.
Well, and again, at this time a year ago, three of those guys were unknowns. Yeah. And a couple of them weren't here, right? Cam Fowler wasn't here. Mailloux wasn't here. And we didn't really know yet what Broberg was going to be. We knew the profile, right? We knew that he and Jordan Holloway were very talented, but they were in positions where they weren't top of the roster players on a pretty loaded roster. Well, they got their extended opportunities last year, and immediately you could see that there's a reason why I think these guys are first-round picks.
Yeah, absolutely. And none of us knew what they were going to be. That's where you give so much credit.
Those two guys, right.
Yeah, so that's where you give so much credit to Armstrong, because when he does that, it feels like he's bringing in a couple just sort of organizational dudes and overpaying for them just to fill out a roster and, maybe bring somebody from the outside. And then you watch and see how those guys play and how important they were to the team and how they were the vital parts of the team taking a couple steps forward. It's really impressive. And that's what I keep using the word bold. That's where that bold move comes, because there was no guarantees that was going to work out the way it did.
No. And more than that, and obviously we'll get into this a little bit more in the next segment as well, but more than that, guys that you needed to take steps forward last year did, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and again, a lot of this happened after Jim Montgomery. Like Jordan Kyrou took a big step forward last year, I thought. Just a little bit more consistency. Obviously, he's still age-wise young-ish. I mean, he's 27. He's not a kid, but you've seen the progression, and I think we might see a 40-goal season this year finally. It's not far off. He's been kind of teasing that for the last few years, but we're seeing a better all-around player, which is the bigger thing, right? The offense has always been there, but the 200-foot game has gotten better.
There's been times where it feels like Jordan Kyrou is just sort of a passenger in a game.
Sometimes, yeah.
And that, I felt like that happened a whole lot less, if at all, from once Montgomery got. And it's simple why. Like Montgomery can demand things of players that probably Drew Bannister couldn't. And that's a credit to him, as having that's what you get when you've been a head coach at multiple places and you already have personal relationships with these guys because you were an assistant here. Like, all that adds together, and now you are in a position to be able to ask more of players, and players need to respond if they want to continue to have opportunities.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting group too. They've gotten a little heavier in some ways, but not like the team used to be, right? Because if you look at like the top six, it is, and Holloway's maybe an interesting mix, right? Because he can fly, but he's also physical. He's also a guy that can get in there and mix it up a little bit. But I think it's a balanced roster, where I think in the past couple of years it hasn't been as balanced. And look, we know why. I mean, you lost a lot of guys. You had contract things coming up. You had guys get older. but the transition has come along faster. And I think this is a good team to be excited about. We can talk a little bit more in the coming segments too, or the next segment, about expectations, because the roster's better. The talent level is higher. Guy like Jimmy Snuggerud adds to that, right? Another offensive player to play in the top 6 to go along with what you already had. And they're going to have offense in the bottom 6 too. I mean, that third line is going to generate some offense, in my opinion. Regardless, and I know these things change all the time. The lines are going to change consistently as it goes. But you already know that you're pretty solid in goal with Binnington and Hofer. So you're at a really good place all the way across the roster, but you're in a tough division. So let's expand to that part coming up next. Just what's a fair expectation? I think most people are more optimistic than they've been in a while. The future is the bright future is closer than it seemed 1 year ago. It's a lot closer. I mean, it may be right around the corner. But what's a fair expectation given the nature of the division and the nature of the Western Conference? We'll touch on that coming up next. It's Rush Hour Sports with Matt Pauley and Kevin Wheeler here on KMOX.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know
the Science Center and McCausland, southbound 270, stop and go in pockets now between Manchester and between Olive and Doherty Ferry. And out west, westbound Highway 70, not bad this afternoon, headed through St. Charles County out towards Wentzville. I'm Frank Led in the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
SNL Coin. We buy gold and silver coins, silver and gold jewelry. Also buying gold filled and silver plate. Before you sell, call SNL 314-544-3600. 314-544-3600. SNL Coin.
This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX.
All right, Rush Hour Sports on KMOX on a Thursday. A little more hockey here, talking about the Blues on opening night. They take on the Minnesota Wild, a team that finished 1 point ahead of them in the standings last year. And obviously, the Central Division is brutal, man. And this is what I want to get into expectations, because I think the expectation, Matt, nationally, like league, maybe not National League, because we had to include Canada, but league-wide, I think the view of them is probably something similar to what they ended up being last year, maybe with a little bit of improvement, because they got to 96 points last year, but it was after a terrible first half. But also the second half was probably a bit more than they should be expected to do consistently over the course of 82. But I think they're a legitimate playoff team. It's going to be tough to crack that top three in their own division, but I think it's possible. Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah, so from an outsider standpoint, and looking at odds is always, I think, a good way to look at this. The Blues have the fifth best odds to win the Central Division. Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, and Minnesota are all in front of them, and significantly in front of them. Minnesota has the odds just in front of them. Minnesota plus 700, and the Blues are plus 1,300. So there's a gap there. And in terms of winning the Western Conference, it's Edmonton, Dallas, Vegas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Los Angeles, Minnesota, and Vancouver that all sit in front of St. Louis. So I bring that up to say this. You look at them on paper, Kevin, and they look like a really, really good team. And if you don't even start to consider what else is going on inside of the division and inside of the conference, you say, man, this is going to be a really good team that has a chance to win a lot of games and make some noise in the playoffs. But then when you do take that step back and you look at how many good teams there are, both in the Central Division and in the Western Conference, you realize that this is still going to be a big challenge for this team this year. I think it would be an incredible disappointment if they were not a playoff club this year, and I expect them to be a playoff club for sure. But at the same time, it's not going to be easy, like you said, to even crack the top three. They could have a good season and be that fifth team, out of the Central Division to make the playoffs if only three teams make it out of the other division. Yeah,
and again, this is not so much about them. I think they're a better team than they were last year. I think there's a lot of upside with Snuggerud being there all year, and we'll see what Mayu brings as the season goes along. I think there's some upside to get you into the 100+ point range. But again, the difficulty here is your competition. So it's my concerns about the playoffs, or about their standing in the playoffs, not about them as much as it's a tough league right now. It's a tough. The top of the West is tough. I think a little tougher than the East, and that makes it a bit more of a challenge. But I think there's a good reason to have a lot of optimism. And one of the things we mentioned briefly, Matt, but I wanted to get into this a little more on the goaltending, because we talked quite a bit about the defensive group and the forwards in the last segment. And somebody on our list, I can't remember who it was, because two guys are having their own talk show on our chat right now. But asked, wish that the Blues had an elite goaltender, that they would love to get an upgrade from Jordan Binnington. Well, The Athletic just did a piece this week. I don't know if you saw it or not. I can't remember if I mentioned it to you, but The Athletic did a piece this week where they had an 11-person panel. Everyone on the 11-person panel is either a goalie coach or a former NHL goalie. Okay? So 11 people who study goaltending. They ranked Jordan Binnington the 7th best goalie in the entire league. And so they did things in tiers, right? The top tier is the world-class tier. There's only 4 guys in that. Shesterkin, Hellebuyck, Vasilevsky, and Bobrovsky. Again, this is according to that group. It can vary from year to year, but this is 11 guys who either played the position or coached it. This isn't just media dudes. It's not just analytics. It's dudes that have done this. And then they ranked Binnington in the next group down, which is called the high-level starter, and they got him ranked 7th overall. I mean, you have a strong goaltending situation.
You do, and the fact of the matter is he gets better when the games mean the most.
That's the one criticism, right, is the inconsistency during the regular season sometimes, yeah.
Which I can deal. Like I'd rather it be the other way. If I have a choice to have an inconsistent regular season goaltender and a guy who stands on his head in the playoffs, or the exact opposite, give me the guy who stands on his head in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's where you have a chance to go win a cup. So I like Jordan Binnington a lot. When things kind of start going bad for him, sometimes does it have the is there the quicksand effect? Yeah, that happens to him every once in a while for sure. I think he's actually the emotional, mental part of the game. I think he's really grown in that area over the last year, especially after the coaching change last year. I think we saw some steps forward for him. And of all the areas to be worried about this team, Jordan Binnington is very, very low.
No,
on
I mean,
list.
you're not. First of all, the teams that have those top four, they're not trading them. The list of guys that are better than him is tiny. It's a handful of people, and they're not going to get traded. You have the guy. You have the guy that you can ride through and win the Stanley Cup because he's done it. And yeah, you know what? He does run a little hot sometimes, but I also think it plays to his advantage sometimes. Like, yes, he goes over the top and he looks like a jerk, and a lot of people around the league, a lot of fans around the league hate him. Who cares? When the biggest games are being played, he comes up big.
And let's also not forget about the history. Basically, this organization went from Curtis Joseph to Jordan Binnington without having a guy that you could really, really count on for an extended amount of time. Were there some guys who had some good years? Did Grant Fuhr play well?
Chris Mason had a huge year for the team. Yeah, they had some guys for sure.
But did they ever have somebody that you could just give the job for multiple years and was a top-tier guy for a long time? They didn't.
Not a long time, no.
No, that's what they finally have in Jordan Binnington. And when you're in that mode of not having somebody that you can just be in that job, for all the guys that had good 1 or 2 year runs, there were a bunch of guys who just weren't very good at all. So I like where the Blues are at from a goaltending standpoint right now.
Absolutely. All right, so Blues open tonight against the Minnesota Wild. So it's a good divisional matchup right out of the gate. We won't learn anything tonight. It's just not going to teach us anything about how the year's going to go, but I can't wait for it to be going. I'm looking forward to another hockey season, and obviously we'll be keeping track of the Blues as we go along throughout the course of the year. We're staying on the Cardinals conversation as well, so coming up next, we're going to shift back to some baseball. So here's what we got. We got reports that Yadier Molina is talking to the Cardinals about a coaching position at the major league level. We've got Jordan Walker at Driveline, plus some playoff baseball. That's all coming up after the news here on KMOX.
Since we have lawyers in all 50 states, I see and hear lots of lawyer ads. It seems that most are bragging on what they got their clients. But be careful. If you heard that someone sold their car for $500,000, you would be impressed. But if you later learned that it was a rare $10 million Ferrari, would you say that person got screwed? And that's before you even know if it's
Nordic. Available as a tablet or delicious gummy, Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
Rush Hour Sports continues on 104.1 FM, KMOX.
All right, Rush Hour Sports on KMOX. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. A little sports open line after the top of the hour news, and then Thursday night football with the Eagles and the Giants here on KMOX. So we teased these before. We're going to get into a couple of big Cardinals things over the next 10 minutes or so. You want to start with Molina first?
Yeah, let's go there.
All right. So there are reports out of Puerto Rico, specifically from El Vocero, where Molina told them that he is, quote, in contact with St. Louis to coach the Cardinals and help Marmol. He's still the manager, but I'd be there side by side. That's the report. Doesn't mean it's a done deal. I think we all would say more Molina is better. You know what I mean? When a guy's got that much experience and he can help, especially when you got a lot of young catchers around, give me all of the exposure I can get for those young catchers with Molina.
Yeah, I like it. And, we were talking earlier about the role. Would it be a bench coach type situation? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, the thing that's out there is Skip Schumacher has a job now with the Rangers. There's a good chance that maybe some people who are on the Cardinals staff could end up there. If Albert Pujols ends up with the Angels, could there be some individuals? So could the bench coach job come open? Could Daniel Descalso end up somewhere? Yeah, that's possible.
I mean, Skip Schumacher just got the job in Texas too, so there's a connection that might pull a guy or two there too.
Exactly. So that can all play out. But I think with somebody like Molina, I would almost want to just give him the ambiguous coach title, where he's got his hands in a lot of different things and being able to impact the team in a lot of different ways. And for him, it's an opportunity because he's talked about wanting to manage. Well, he can be there alongside of Ollie and just see everything that goes into it. He's not going to have to meet with the media 4 times a day, but he can watch the manager do it and see if that's something that he's going to be comfortable with. So there's a lot of reasons that this would make a whole lot of sense, and I hope it happens. It is a huge commitment on his part. I think that's one. He has committed to some things previously and then them not totally come to fruition. So I think the big question for him is this something where he's ready to get back in and be first one in, last one out every single day, and the grind that goes along with the baseball season? He knows that grind from all those years playing. So he knows what he's going to be signing up for. If he's ready to sign up for that again, let's go.
And to be clear, so far, I didn't see anything in that report that suggested it was necessarily a full-time job.
I thought I saw that. Maybe I didn't. I thought I saw
at least
that
nothing
somewhere,
nothing in that quote said full-time.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it wouldn't be that. I just want to be clear that, it's still in the discussion stages. You're still in the waiting game with the rest of the staff being what it is at the moment. And we don't know what exactly the structure is going to be, because what the holdup has been here recently was his son, who is now committed to go to college. So he's wrapping up his senior year now and is going to college. So maybe Yadi figures, well, when he's in college, I'm not going to be, you're not the coach when you're dad. The college coach is the coach. That's how that structure works. So maybe it's a little bit more hands off now that your son's going to be going to college. And maybe that's why the interest is renewed coming up into this year. But we don't know yet what that is. All we know is that Yadi has said to a newspaper in Puerto Rico, El Vocero, that he is talking about it with the team, that he's talking about joining the staff and joining Ollie Marmol. So it'd be cool.
He has a good relationship with,
they're buddies.
And who he respects a lot. Yeah,
they're buddies. They get along quite well. So that's that story. Let's talk about Jordan Walker coming up next. We'll do that after a quick hit of traffic. We'll how things are going if you're coming downtown to see the Blues opener against the Minnesota Wild. Here's how things look as you're making your way down those roadways.
Traffic from the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
Well, we do have busy pockets through the Central Corridor, eastbound on Highway 64, starting at Highway 270, headed up towards about Big Bend. Not quite stop and go in that stretch, but it is definitely heavier than normal, headed towards Forest Park. East of there, not bad, headed towards downtown St. Louis. We do have a couple incidents to pay attention to. Northbound on 170, just south of Page, the 2 right lanes are blocked with a crash there. That has you backed up to Forest Park Parkway. Stop and go in that stretch. Southbound 170 drivers are slowing from the Parkway through Highway 64, mainly that left lane. Still dealing with a crash eastbound on Highway 44, approaching Highway 100 out in the Villa Ridge area, still over on the right shoulder. We're sponsored by the Penn Mutual Life Insurance Company. Chances are you have a lot of people who depend on you, your family, maybe even employees. Life insurance from Penn Mutual can provide you peace of mind and protect the most important people in your life. Ask your independent advisor or go to pennmutual.com/STL. I'm Frank Ladd in the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
All right, back in on Rush Hour Sports. Certainly looking forward to further clarification on what will be happening with Yadier Molina and whether or not he joins the staff. And certainly we'll all be excited if it does. And then we can put it to the test, Matt. Will it sell tickets? I never thought it would. Not as a manager, not as a coach. I don't think coaches and managers sell tickets. Nope. I think players sell tickets and winning sells tickets, and I'll stick by that no matter what happens.
I will too. And the people who want to yell and scream that, so many more tickets are going to be sold if you bring in a Yachty or an Albert. I think you're wrong. I just think
you
may
get a few, but it's not going to be notable.
Yeah.
Not like a big free agent signing would. Not like the Nolan Arenado trade. That led to quite a few tickets being sold.
Yeah. And if something pops into their lap this year, which I hope it does, I don't think it's going to, but if something that has long-term implications can just fall to them, that could sell some tickets. Outside of that, I don't think there's a whole lot that they can do.
All right. So I saw a video earlier today that made me very happy. And it's early video of Jordan Walker at Driveline working on things. Now, forget the video. Don't watch it and analyze the video. Okay, he's taking.
Come on, no.
We
gotta analyze it.
He's taking batting practice. He's getting pitches that are belt high in the zone, and he's crushing them. Okay, forget that. I don't care about that. Even though at the beginning of the video, he hits a ball and it registers at 114 miles an hour, and it was a ball that went into the stands. These machines. The way this works is you have the sensors that are there, the TrackMan systems and all that. And it feeds into a computer, and the computer will show you on the screen a major league ballpark and where the ball would have landed, all that kind of stuff. It's 114 miles an hour. It's clearly a home run. It's up in the air. And when he finds out it was 114, he said something along the lines of, "I don't think I've ever hit a ball that hard, that high before," which is obviously what we're hoping for, to see that ball go over the fence instead of on the ground to the shortstop. But forget the video.
Can I say one thing about the video?
The sheer fact that he's there, and he's there in early October getting an early start, that's what's exciting.
Here's the one thing. Yes, you're right. I don't know. Like, we've talked so much, Kevin, about him putting in the work, him putting in the effort, him taking the legit path of trying to fix the issues that plague him. And going to Driveline is that. I think what you can learn from the video is, like, at one point they used the short bat, right? So what's one of the issues that Jordan Walker has? He swings too much at that low and away stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you're training yourself even more so not to swing at that if the bat that you're using at one point is super short. So I guess when I try to analyze the video, that was one of the things that I really took note of, because that feels like a tool to be able to fix one of the issues that he had this past year.
Well,
so that's where I would go.
It would be if the pitches were coming in at various locations, but they're all kind of right down the middle.
Okay.
No, and look, there's a lot to like about this, and yeah, look, you can, if you wanted to analyze some things in the video, there's some stuff that looks really good, and if he's able to repeat it in games, great. But again, it's very early in this process. It's batting practice. A lot of people take great swings on BP, but what is important to me is that what they do at Driveline is clear. So they're going to analyze everything you do. They're going to analyze biomechanics. They're going to analyze your attack angle, your swing path, all of this stuff to make sure that you're operating efficiently. And then they're going to build a plan, a set of drills, a set of things you can work on to attack those problems. And I'm sure they're going to do the same thing beyond mechanics, Matt, and do that with what you talked about, which is swing decisions. You got to be able to accept that you can't do anything with the pitch down and away, and you just leave it alone. And if they call it a strike, they call it a strike.
Yeah, and I don't mean to throw water on all this either, because I'm with you. I think it's a really, really good development. But it's not that different than what he's been doing underneath the, in the cages at 3:00 in the afternoon and, working with Brant Brown, where it's the goal here is to take this stuff into the games. So I'm really glad he's doing this. I'm glad the instruction that he received this year. The next step for him is to actually be able to take these things that he's doing and use them when it matters. And that's something that we're not going to get an answer to until next year.
Yeah, and look, I think it's the biggest thing about it is probably just that it's October 9th and it's already happening.
Yes.
A lot of big leaguers take a couple months off. But clearly, when you have things to fix, you don't want to do that. You want to jump right on it and get to work. Because if you get the evaluation stuff done now and you get the game plan, well, now you have your plan set up for the offseason.
And one last thing on this, each one of these players, and Chaim Bloom talked about this the other day when he was on Gas House King, that one of the key tenets of this organization now is that every single player is going to receive a personalized plan and information about what you need to do in the offseason and what the plan is. So if Jordan Walker walks out of the door at the end of the year and Chaim Bloom says, look, we really believe in you. We believe in this underlying stuff. If it ever comes together, you can be an all-star caliber player with us. But, oh, yeah, by the way, you don't have a major league job guaranteed for next year. That's an impactful statement for a guy who has spent a lot of time in the big leagues recently.
All right, so one more segment to go. I got a question for you. Think about it during the break. Why do former players on playoff broadcasts say so many stupid things? We're going to talk about it next up here on KMOX.
Attention business owners with a net income over $500,000.
Starting at about 270, make your way up to about Big Bend. East of there, it opens up passing Forest Park, headed towards downtown St. Louis. Still some delays southbound on 170 as well. That left lane, especially from the Parkway, headed towards Highway 64. Thinning out southbound on 270 this afternoon. The only stop-and-go stretch remains at about Olive. South of there, a great run making your way towards Manchester Road, headed down towards Highway 44. Westbound on Highway 64, the heavy stop-and-go stretch now is west of 364 on westbound 64, passing Lake St. Louis out to about Prospect and Wentzville. I'm Frank Ladd in the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX.
All right, Rush Hour Sports, a few more minutes here. Sports Open Line after that, and then Thursday Night Football after a short edition of Sports Open Line. So I asked this teaser before, Matt. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the things that I'm going to bring up, but I I don't understand why the former players that they put on playoff baseball often say the dumbest things. It's almost like they don't pay attention to anything other than what they did when they were on the field. Like, I like John Smoltz. I don't like him as an analyst. I like him as a guy. He's been very kind over the years when I've had him on shows. He's a good guest. He's thoughtful. He's engaging. I think he's a good guy. All he does is complain and say dumb things. Like yesterday, he's making the case that it's harder to win the World Series when you're in the playoffs every year than it is to just get in and go on a run. What are you talking about? You got to make the playoffs to have the chance, brother. You can't. And I know what he's thinking, right? Because in Atlanta, they were there every year. They only won one, and it's hard. It's a lot harder when you're not there, dum-dum.
Yeah, I mean, the only argument for that is if you're really bad all the other years, so you get to stock up a bunch of high, picks, and then you all of a sudden put it together. But a lot of these people, and I don't want to speak like specifically about anyone, but a lot of these individuals have a lot of other stuff going on. When the individuals that the Foxes of the world want are the guys who played at the highest level and have name recognition. Well, you know what? Those guys get done, and they've got a lot of money, and they've got an opportunity to go do a lot of other things in their respective lives, and they've just had a really long playing career, and getting away from the game might be good. And then all of a sudden, they're kind of thrown back into it. I think baseball, more than any other sport, Kevin, is the sport where you have to follow along on an everyday basis. You have to watch the games. You have to follow along with the advancements in technology and everything that is motivating the decisions that are going on in front offices. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say that we're digging ditches or anything like that. It's a big blessing that people like us get to cover this game, but this is not a part-time deal with baseball. Baseball is something that if you're going to work in it and work around it and cover it and talk about it, you have to be able to be with it every single day.
I just wish some of them would do things that make sense. So like today, last night also, right? Yankees lose. Big disappointment. On the Fox postgame show, the guys are talking about how it's the front office fault. Derek Jeter and A-Rod, the former Yankees on the panel, said it's not Aaron Boone, and Alex Rodriguez said that the roster construction is one of the worst he's ever seen. Okay, about the Yankees. Then why did you pick them to win the series, you dummy? It's the same roster as the start of the series. You picked them to beat the Blue Jays, and he picked them before Game 4 to win that game. So if they have one of the worst roster constructions you've ever seen, why are you picking them to win? And then how do you justify having one opinion days after having the opposite opinion? Like, you got to think a little bit, dude. That's just so dumb.
I mean, the one thing I will say, like, I can retroactively look back at the Cardinals this past year and say, man, that roster just wasn't good enough. There wasn't enough talent.
But you didn't pick them to win the division.
No. But if we go back to the beginning of the season, I think you would have heard me having a very different tone about what was it. So, but for that change to happen over the course of a 5-day period is a pretty extreme change.
It's nuts. All right, buddy, have fun with Sports Open Line. Short version of it tonight. What, 6:30 you're out?
Yep.
6 to 6:30, and then we got Thursday Night Football. Have a great night, bud. We'll talk to you tomorrow. That's going to be Rush Hour Sports. Sports Open Line next on KMOX.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you. You are. Call now. 800-575-9834. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-9834. That's 800-575-9834. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Let's go! You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at VaxAssist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Severe from Vicks.
Sinex Severe nasal spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Severe instantly relieves nasal congestion and works 6 times faster than nasal decongestant tablets. The 12 hours of relief allow you to get back to the moments that matter without congestion.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Try Sinex Severe from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
If you're drowning in IRS debt and can't afford to pay, then you need to take advantage of special IRS tax programs that are available and free yourself from IRS collection efforts once and for all. Due to the financial hardship consumers are facing throughout the country, the Internal Revenue Service has made it easier to settle delinquent tax problems. An open phone line has been established by Community Tax for consumers to call and see if they qualify. Take down this number or store it in your cell phone, but call the Community Tax Helpline at 800-536-9607. If you owe back taxes to the IRS and cannot afford to pay them back, or even if you have years of unfiled tax returns, there's no need to fear anymore. But you have to call the Community Tax Helpline today at 800-536-9607 for the help that you need. Don't take on the IRS alone. They can attack your wages, savings, pension, home, and even your Social Security check. Call 800-536-9607 for your free consultation and to see if you qualify. That's 800-536-9607.
It's the most inspiring night in sports. The Musial Awards at Stiefel Theater. You can be in the audience for this nationally televised event from St. Louis. Named for Stan the Man, the Musial Awards celebrate those who uplift us through their extraordinary sportsmanship. Experience the remarkable moments and people that make this an event like no other. The Musial Awards, presented by Maryville University. Saturday, November 22nd. Tickets at musialawards.com.
Red Kingdom is back at FanDuel Sports Network Live in Ballpark Village. See every game on the largest screen in town. Don't forget about the $25 buckets, $5 cocktails, and the best tailgate food around. Grab your friends along with KMOX and huddle up for the games at the best watch party in town. If you can't make it, but don't want to miss it down, listen to the Chiefs on KMOX or KMOX on the Odyssey app. For more info, KMOX.com/events.
Traffic from the michaelsflooringoutlet.com traffic center.
Well, the crash is now out of the way. All lanes back open northbound on 170 south of Page. That's good. Those delays are dissipating as well. Traffic moving at Olive. Just a little pocket of IM now northbound 170 north of the Parkway, headed up towards about Delmar. Southbound 170 drivers are still heavy, headed towards 64, that left lane. We have a new incident that's a crash westbound on Highway 70, just past the 170 interchange. You're backed up to about Hanley. The left lane is blocked there, just past Highway 170. And still some pockets of volume headed eastbound at 64, starting at about Spady Road, headed towards Big Bend and downtown. I'm Frank Ladd of the michaelsflooringoutlet.com Traffic Center.
Mid-America's most trusted voice for news. KMOX AM St. Louis. KMOX FM Hazelwood. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
Israel-Hamas war.
We ended the war in Gaza.
New York Attorney General indicted.
She has been a longtime political rival of the president.
2 cities challenging National Guard deployment.
The court appeared skeptical of the government's broad claims.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Jennifer Kuiper. After Israel and Hamas agreed to the first phase of a U.S.-brokered ceasefire plan in Gaza, Israel's Prime Minister's office says the cabinet has approved the framework for the release of all hostages. On word of the ceasefire, this displaced Gaza resident says through an interpreter,
"We are very happy that the war has stopped. This is something joyful for us, and we thank everyone who contributed to stop the war and bloodshed."
CBS's Linda Kenyon.
The president has big plans over the next few days.
The hostages will be coming back Monday or Tuesday. I'll probably be there. I hope to be there. And we're planning on leaving sometime Sunday. And I look forward to it.
Speaking in the Oval Office, Trump said the whole world looks forward to it, too.
Everybody's celebrating. Everybody loves the deal.
Many questions still remain, including the makeup of an international stabilization force and funding sources to rebuild Gaza.
A grand jury indicts New York Attorney General Letitia James on 2 counts of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. CBS's Scott McFarland.
The case was approved by a grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia today. The case then heads to Norfolk, Virginia, which is the area of Virginia where the alleged crime took place. Tish James's case, though, comes not in a vacuum, but it comes just days after President Trump posted on social media to his attorney general that he thought Tish James should be charged with a crime, saying that justice needs to be served. She has been a longtime political rival of the president's. She brought a successful civil suit against then former President Trump in New York.
James says in an online video,
"This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system."
Her indictment comes 2 weeks after a criminal case charging former FBI Director James Comey with lying to Congress. A federal judge temporarily blocks the Trump administration from deploying National Guard troops to Chicago for what President Trump has said is a crime crackdown. Some Texas Guard members were sent to an ICE facility in suburban Chicago earlier. A similar lawsuit is also playing out in Portland, Oregon. CBS's Nicole Skanga.
Deputy Assistant Attorney General there, Eric MacArthur, said officers were stretched thin and the president was entitled to bring the National Guard in to prevent further risk. Oregon's attorney Stacey Chafin really pushed back on that, saying civilian law enforcement was capable and in control.
Stocks fall on Wall Street. Now this.
Brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Not only does Progressive let you bundle your insurance, they also give you round-the-clock protection. Quote today at Progressive.com.
At 6:03, we've got some sunshine right now, 68 degrees downtown at the Arch. Sheriff Alfred Montgomery has been indicted on new felony counts.
4 counts of felony witness retaliation and 1 count of witness tampering are the new charges levied against St. Louis City Sheriff Alfred Montgomery. These new counts stem from his federal misdemeanor case for detaining Deputy Jail Commissioner Tammy Ross in February. According to charging documents, Sheriff Alfred Montgomery can be heard on a recorded phone call complaining about 3 employees talking to the feds, saying they got to go. He then allegedly terminated 1, suspended another, and demoted a 3rd. Sheriff Montgomery's attorney, Justin Gelfand, says these charges stem from legal employment decisions.
They decided to charge first and investigate later. What the evidence will actually show is that the sheriff put into place real, proper, legal employment mechanisms and protocols. Those were largely spearheaded by Judge David Mason.
Mason also serves as Montgomery's attorney and says he will be running the sheriff's department while Montgomery serves house arrest ahead of his evidentiary hearing on Tuesday. His attorneys would not comment when asked if Montgomery will be resigning. Sean Malone, KMOX News.
A recent study of crash victims in one county in Ohio found over 40% of them tested positive for high levels of THC in their blood. Tabitha Perkins with Mothers Against Drunk Driving tells KMOX it's a problem they're also seeing in Missouri.
Just because THC is legal, it doesn't mean that you can get behind the wheel of a vehicle and turn it into a deadly weapon. It means that you're in an impaired state, and we beg everybody to not drive.
She says, unlike alcohol, it is harder for both smokers and prosecutors to determine how impaired someone is from smoking marijuana, especially with how long THC can show up in your blood system. Who's winning the government shutdown, or at least the arguments? Republicans are blaming U.S. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer for blocking a vote on the stopgap spending bill passed by the House because it doesn't contain a healthcare spending provision. Terry Smith, a political science professor at Columbia College in Central Missouri, says calling it a Schumer shutdown might not be wrong.
Is it literally true that it's up to Schumer? I suppose. I mean, he could probably rally Democrats, but right now I think Democrats feel like, at least for now, they public opinion is on their side.
Smith tells Missourians so far neither side seems interested in backing down. With the price of gold hitting a record this week, is it time to buy or sell? Barry Faintich started Midwest Money 55 years ago with an ounce of gold costing $35. Now it's hovering at about $4,000.
That investment stands up as good as any other investment that's been out for the last 50 years. So I'm a long-term player, and I like holding gold. So I think if you're patient with it, you'll see fluctuations, but eventually it seems to move higher.
At 6:06, let's get you to Frank Ladd for a check on the roads.
Michael, we're still seeing delays due to this incident westbound on Highway 70, just past 170. It's up against the left median wall, but they have the left lane blocked there. You're backed up to about Hanley. We continue to thin out southbound on Highway 170 approaching Highway 64. Just that left lane now from about the Galleria Parkway headed down towards 64 is busy. You are busy eastbound on Highway 64 between Lindbergh and Big Bend. East of there, a good run passing Forest Park, making your way towards downtown St. Louis. And we have a new accident reported now, Shoto at South Broadway. I'm Frank Ladd in the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Overhead Door Company of St. Louis.
If you need a new garage door, this could be your lucky day. Entries are now open for the $5,000 sweepstakes at Overhead Door Company of St. Louis. A winner will be chosen at random to receive $5,000 towards new garage doors, openers, or front entry doors of their choice. Enter now at overheaddoorstlouis.com.
No weather concerns at all other than a little bit of a warming trend, especially tomorrow afternoon and through the weekend. Clear skies tonight. If you're headed out, think temperatures in the 60s and 49 for the low. On Friday, a mix of clouds and sunshine, a few more clouds around, 78. Friday night, some clouds, 58. Saturday, sunny, 81. And Sunday, sunny and 84. From the Saliga Heating and Cooling Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Dave Murray on 104.1 FM. KMOX.
We've got a clear sky, currently 68 downtown at the Arch. I'm Michael Calhoun, KMOX News.
Come on, let's get going now. From KMOX Sports.
We're primed and ready. All day, baby.
Man, let's go. This is the Gray Bar Sports Open Live. Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs on 104.1 FM, KMOX.
Here we go, a very short edition of the program. Have you for about 22 more minutes. That is it tonight as we get you ready for Thursday night football. That's what we're going to have here on KMOX as the Eagles and the Giants are going to match up against each other, and our coverage from Westwood One Sports. It is set to begin right at 6:30, so 22 minutes from now is when we will get underway with Thursday Night Football. So we've got you for a little bit of time. Here's what's coming up on our very short edition of the program. In our next segment, we'll talk all Blues hockey. Jim Montgomery, the Blues head coach, he spoke with the media earlier today after morning skate as the team gets ready to open up their season tonight, and we will play for you much of what Montgomery had to say leading in to this season opener. And high expectations, but also a lot of focus on getting off this season on a good foot, right? They do not want to have a slow start to the year. We talked about it a bunch last hour during the rush hour that as good as the Blues are, the Western Conference and the Central Division are equally, if not better, than the Blues. And if they want to be a playoff team this year, if they want to put themselves in the best possible position to even maybe exceed the outside expectations, well, then getting off to a good start is a very important thing. Not that you can't come back from a slow start, as we have certainly seen this Blues team do a time or two, but just with everything kind of available for them, it would be smart for them to get off on a good foot here. So we'll talk more Blues hockey coming up in our next segment. I want to spend a little bit more time on the Yadier Molina report that came out. And it's a little bit challenging to talk about this because honestly, we don't know all the details on it. So the initial report was that Molina is in conversation with the Cardinals on joining the staff. And Kevin and I talked about this a little bit last hour. It's not clear if that would be in a full-time role, in a part-time role. If it's a part-time role, I guess it's different than what it's been, but how different is it than what it's been, where he was coming in a little bit this past year? And you remember he was supposed to have a much larger role with the organization in the year leading up to, where they even announced him as a special assistant, and we thought we'd see him in spring training and everything. And that ended up not happening. Maybe what they're talking about is actually the kind of that playing out, that coming to fruition, where he's somebody who's going to drop in a handful of times over the course of the season and join the major league staff for a weekend here, a week there, whatever, and a guy who has a lot of presence during spring training, and maybe also somebody that pops into the minor league sites every once in a while. If Leonardo Bernal is at AAA this year, you don't think there'd be some value in Yadier Molina all of a sudden showing up and being able to spend some time with him at AAA, just as he kind of puts the finishing touches on what he needs to do in the minor leagues to be ready to get to the big leagues? There's so many young catchers too. Jimmy Crooks, I would hope that he has a major league opportunity next year. Assuming that's the case, Is it a situation where you have him around the big league team a lot to help with Crooks, especially if Crooks is not an everyday starter? What if the scenario does play out where a Von Herrera returns to either full-time catching or a lot of catching, where they just have the two catchers on the roster, where it's Herrera and Pajes, and Crooks ends up back at AAA. You have a Crooks-Bernal thing going at AAA. You probably want Molina to see them at some point. So there's countless scenarios. I could keep going. We could spend this entire segment just going through all the various scenarios where Yadier Molina can help your organization. So I don't know. I don't know if it'd be a full-time job. If it's a full-time job, does he come in as a bench coach? You have a bench coach, but I think a lot of things are probably up in the air, specifically because you've got a guy in Skip Schumacher who has been with some of these people who are on the coaching staff before, who just got a job with the Rangers. Is there a scenario where some Cardinals coaches leave the Cardinals to go to the Rangers to be on Schumacher's staff? I think that's possible. Is there a scenario where if Albert Pujols becomes the manager of the Angels, that he taps into some of his connections inside of the Cardinals organization and brings some people over? Yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility as well. Is there a scenario here where Chaim Bloom talked a lot about there being a lot of consistency on the staff going into next year compared with this last year, but he also said they're working through some things. Didn't say it was going to be 100% consistency. I think from just a health standpoint, keeping an organization healthy, it's always good to filter in some new voices every once in a while. Now, the main decision maker when it comes to baseball operations is a new voice this year, so that's gonna be a new voice that impacts everybody. But there's value in getting some different voices on a coaching staff and just freshening up the staff on a very often basis, if not an every year basis, doing it fairly often. So I don't know. We don't know what the role would be. We don't know what positions are going to be available. Even if they create a position for him, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be some other changes on the coaching staff going into this year. I think the more important thing here, I mentioned this today. I did my Thursday hit with the Chris and Amy show. And most people listening probably know that I am an admirer of Oliver Marmol. I like Ollie a lot. I think he's a good manager. I'm excited to see what it's going to look like for him under the baseball leadership of Chaim Bloom. I always acknowledge the fact that there's no guarantee it will work. There's no guarantee that Ollie's the longtime manager of this team, but I think he does a nice job. I think he's gotten more out of this roster than just about anybody would be able to do. And if he's given a few more tools, I'd like to see what that would look like. That being said, it's kind of the same conversation we had when Yadi first joined the team as an assistant coach, popping in a couple times during the year. It says a lot about Ollie as a guy that when all the outside voices, not all of them, but when many of the outside voices are yelling and screaming for Yadi or Albert to come in and be the manager and to take his job, that he embraces these individuals. And he has personal relationships with them. He's friends. He trusts them. That's the number one thing. If Yadi was politicking for Ollie's job, I'm guessing Ollie would not quite as be as arms wide open as he is, but that's not happening. But it's just something, and Bernie's been talking about this recently, and I'll kind of pick it up. Oliver Marmol has done everything that I think Cardinals fans should appreciate in terms of his path. Now, he replaced a very popular manager, and that's the part of his path that Cardinals fans don't like. But that's out of his control. When the organization makes the decision to move on from Mike Schilt, they're going to offer the job to Ollie, and he's going to say, nope, no, I'm not going to take this life-changing position that there's only a handful of, and a very small number of people have ever had this job. But Ollie's he's been a Cardinals lifer, played in the minor leagues, minor league instructor, moved his way up, got into the coaching staff. I mean, this is somebody who has devoted his life, and he seems to be somebody who, when it comes to managing the Cardinals, the only thing he really cares, two things he cares about. He cares about winning, and he hasn't done enough of that. We need to see this team win a little bit more, and hopefully that starts to happen. But he cares about just the health of this organization, what can be done to make the team better. And if that's having Yachty on the staff, if that's having Yachty in the dugout, if that's having him be a bigger part of what's going on, well, then that's all that matters, I think, to Ollie. Bring in whoever you want. Do whatever you can to put this organization in a better spot. And I bluntly, I wish he was appreciated more for having that type of attitude. I get it. Look, there's just people who aren't going to like him. Okay. For whatever reason. A lot of it has to do with he was the one who replaced Mike Schilt. Some people don't like the fact that he wears his hat backwards. Some people don't like this. Some people don't like that. Okay, whatever. We're not gonna argue that. That isn't even what I'm trying to do right here. But what I am trying to do is just acknowledge the fact that he would be all in on having Yachty around more often, no matter what so many of those outside voices happen to be yelling and screaming about. I'm sure we'll get more into this coming up tomorrow when we have a full 2-hour program, but I want to talk Blues hockey. They open up their season tonight. They are taking on the Minnesota Wild. So much optimism, so much excitement about this team this year. We are going to hear from head coach Jim Montgomery. He spoke with the media earlier today, and those pregame thoughts from him are coming up in just a moment right here on KMOX.
You've got a ton of equity in your home. You're sitting on a gold mine, and you could do so much with all that cash, like
Specialist, a $250 value. Don't wait. Go to HomeTitleLock.com now. Promo code radio.
Fridays mean football. From a zoo to the NFL, we've got your weekend covered.
All three, ready?
It's Friday football on KMOX.
It's a Gray Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX. My name is Matt Pauley as we are into our final segment. Done early tonight. We're going to get out of here for Thursday Night Football as the Giants and the Eagles are going to match up against each other this evening. And our coverage from Westwood One Sports is going to begin at 6:30. Also tonight, it's a big night for sports fans in St. Louis as the Blues, they are opening up their season and they are going to play host to the Minnesota Wild. Blues head coach Jim Montgomery did meet with the media earlier today. Want to play back some of what he had to say as he previewed what we're going to see tonight with the Blues and the Wild. And as he opened up his comments today, talked a little bit about what he wants to see from his club.
I think it's really playing on your toes. And trying to get to our identity as quick as we can. The teams like Minnesota did last year, they got their identity right away. They had a great start. And that's the way you want to start the year, is trying to get to your identity. Having watched a lot of games over the last 2 nights, you see some teams that are playing slow and the teams that are playing fast and playing to their identity know what they're doing when they get the puck. They're playing fast, and it's pretty evident that they're a little bit ahead of the curve.
One of the cliches in sports is that you want to have a good start to the season. No coach, no manager, no anybody is ever going to tell you anything but that. That being said, Montgomery does think it is important to have a good start to the season, and not just because, but he has a very specific detail on the way the schedule is lined up on why he thinks there's that much more importance to being able to come out of the gate well.
It's pretty big because our schedule it's heavy leaning the first month or so at home. So it's going to be important. We know we love playing in front of our great fans. We know it's going to be loud here tonight, and it's our job to make sure they stay loud.
Getting a good start to the season also is connected to being a playoff team this year. I think on paper you can look down at the Blues and see a really, really good hockey team, and you don't have to squint that hard to see a team that can certainly go on a run in the playoffs. But you also take a step back and look at the Central Division and look at the Western Conference as a whole, and you see a lot of really, really good teams, meaning that there's probably going to be some pretty good hockey teams in the Western Conference that don't even qualify for the playoffs this year. And Montgomery reiterated that, talking about the strength of the Western Conference.
I think it's going to be really hard to make the playoffs in the West. When I look at it, I think it's much harder to make the playoffs in the West than the East. And when our division, you said it, Utah's coming on. From what I saw from Chicago in camp, they're coming on. But you have there's so many deep, talented teams in our own division. And then that's not including, the Vegases and Edmontons and, Vancouver had a great preseason. And there's a lot of good teams in the West.
As they open up the season tonight, Montgomery very confident about his club and their ability to have a successful season. And again, going back to what he said a moment ago, being able to have a good start to the year. He was asked what most impressed him about what he saw from the team during training camp.
How sharp our goalies and our defensemen have been. I think that's what gives me confidence that we're going to start off well and we're going to get to our identity pretty quick. Our defensemen are long. They skate well. Their gaps have been really good. And the physicality has gone up in our decor. So that gives me a lot of confidence. And then when you have Binnington in there, someone that just he's almost serene, and that's how calm he makes the rest of us. So that's something that obviously gives you confidence you can get off to a good start.
Well, Jimmy Snuggerud did finish out the season last year with the Blues and played in the playoffs. This is really his first real taste of the NHL from a full season mode, going through training camp, starting the season, doing all those sort of things. And Montgomery talked a little bit about what he has seen from Snuggerud as his NHL career is still very much in its infancy.
I see at times a guy that looks like he played really well in the playoffs and has a lot of NHL experience. And at times I see a real rookie coming into his first training camp. And there's a lot to think about with training camp, the length of it, how hard it usually is training camp, and then building that and trying to get ready for a regular season. I mean, he's used to 1 week of practices and you start playing games in college. So that's not the way. So he's just adjusting to a full regular season in being an NHL player.
Like any young player, there are going to be moments this year with Snuggerud where it looks really, really, really good. And there's going to be some moments where it does not look as good. Montgomery talked a little bit about how to deal with those moments of adversity. Maybe you do need to move them down a line. Maybe you need to take them off the ice for a little while. Whatever it might be, that seems like a negative reaction. But from Montgomery's take, whether it's Snuggerud or really any other young player, positivity is the key when it comes to helping young players get better.
I think it's really important with young guys that you encourage, not discourage. And you talk to them about what their strengths are. And talk about teaching a lot about, when they make mistakes. And like if, for instance, I go down the two lines because we're trying to protect the lead and he's not out there, tell him about it on the bench. It's nothing you didn't do. It's just I'm going to go with guys that have been here before and done it before.
And then the final thing from Montgomery specifically to this matchup against Minnesota tonight, you look at the Wild and you look at the top of their roster with certainly some star power, and you got to be able to slow that down. I thought this was interesting from Montgomery. He specifically mentioned his center depth as a reason that they feel very good about being able to slow down teams with star players. We know what they have from a defensive pairing standpoint, and the top defensive pairing of Colton Parayko and also Cam Fowler. But when you look at forwards being able to go out and play defense, the fact that they brought in somebody in Pius Suter, who is someone who has a very good defensive reputation. At some point, Oscar Sundquist is going to be back. Right now, Nick Bjugstad's going to be on that fourth line. You have Robert Thomas, Braden Shen. Montgomery really spent some time talking about the center depth on this team and what it does for them from a defensive perspective.
What also helps is the added center depth we have, that we have multiple lines that I feel comfortable that can go out and do the job against them defensively. And because of the veteran center presence we have, the awareness of our centers of getting the job done against, you can't give them second and third chances.
That is Blues coach Jim Montgomery as we get you ready for the Blues and the Wild tonight. That's going to be a 7 o'clock puck drop over at Enterprise Center, and away we go with hockey season. And it's going to be a fun one, I think, for the Blues. For us here at KMOX, we are done early because we have a Thursday night football. It's the Eagles and the Giants tonight, and we've got coverage from Westwood One Sports beginning in just a few moments, as that's going to get started at 6:30 here on KMOX. Thanks for being tuned in with us, both for the Rush Hour Sports Hour and also for Sports Open Line. Back at you tomorrow. We'll have a full 3 hours, the 1 hour of Rush Hour Sports at 5 o'clock, and then a full 2-hour edition of Sports Open Line tomorrow from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Again, thanks for being with us, and look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Enjoy Thursday night football. It's the Eagles and the Giants, and it's on the way next right here on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
You've got your whole life ahead of you, so choose a Medicare plan you can count on. And that's what you get with a Medicare Advantage plan from United Healthcare. With more than 45 years